I'm still freaked out with the 1984 voice. Number of things I've done, and still not ready for it. Anyway, welcome.
No, it's fine. It's fine. Whenever I hear the automated message service on my phone, where it's like, you have 3 new messages. I keep thinking it's going to gain sentience and be like, the murderers are on the way to the house. Like as if someone's like low-jacked my telephone and they're suddenly just like, Mr. Brumpton, the murderers are on their way. We are sorry. Goodbye. And I don't know why I assume that HAL 9000 is out to kill me via the telephone. But yeah, there it is.
I feel like you watch a lot of sci-fi. Is this what this is?
Maybe I've just made too many enemies.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the two. It's either that or it's that scene from The Office.
Yes. I mean, the problem is my dad does know where I live.
Yeah, that's going to be problematic. Anyway, welcome to the series.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So,
good luck editing this.
It's good going great. Brilliant. So for anyone who is new to this series is designed for the real action takers, because we know there are a lot of them out there with short filmmakers who read all the books, they read all the information. A lot of it is very kind of fluffy, a lot of it is conflicting, and so this is just designed to be the most concentrated information they can actually just get on with using. So in a nutshell, tell us what it is you do.
So I run Polymath PR. We are a public relations firm that specializes in entertainment, going between primarily music and film. We do the bits of culture, like we've just done a VR fine arts project as well. A big part of my role is working with up-and-coming musicians and filmmakers, helping them get ready for film festivals, kind of guiding them through the festival circuit in a PR perspective, helping them kind of find the right audience, get them in front of journalists, and help trying to kind of raise their profile. That's my role.
Yeah. I love talking to short filmmakers, especially about PR, because you can tell they're so focused on just getting into production that everything after is like they've already done a marathon. You might as well give them another one to run. So
yeah, I think from now on, I think we need to tell filmmakers that making a movie is not a marathon. It's an Ironman. And I think the second you put it to them like that, it's easier, because there's the making the thing, there's the festival circuit, and then if you get that far, there's the awards run. So I think from now on, I think we should start telling filmmakers this isn't a marathon, it's an Ironman tournament. And good luck to you.
Yeah, there is always a little bit more than you think.
Still 10 miles to go.
A little bit left that we haven't done. So
it's okay, everyone's chasing, it's fine.
So when you're working with filmmakers and, you know, on their project, how do you like to dive in with them? What's your approach to it?
I mean, ultimately, it does start with the film. So for me, it's very much a case of like, does the film resonate with me? Is this a project I want to get involved in? Is this a voice that I think I can contribute to kind of help getting out into the wider world? It very much starts with the film, and I think that's one of the things that I think a lot of filmmakers. I think for filmmakers that's actually quite encouraging to hear in a way. Maybe there's a bit of pressure on them as well. Oh God, I hope it's okay. But realistically, if you're looking to invest in a PR campaign or hire a publicist as part of a festival run or whatever it might be, by that point in time, odds are you've probably got enough faith in your project to kind of think, okay, we're ready to take this to a wider audience. So it starts with the film. If the film is good, then I'm in. If I don't feel the film is quite something I can work with, I would rather be honest with the client. I have absolutely turned down projects in the past because I just couldn't quite resonate with the film I was watching. And I just think that's the fairest thing to say. And I would also say to filmmakers as well, if a publicist or a management company turn you down because they're not resonating with the film, don't take that as a rejection. They're doing you a favor, because it's better to have someone say, thank you, but I can't help you on this one, but I wish you the best of luck. Come back to me again in the future. Then it's to say, sure, here's my invoice. You know, there's a world of difference between those two things. It's important to find the right people.
Yeah, and I guess, you know, these are it's not just a bunch of organizations that you're taking the film to. These are personal contacts and people that you know and you've established relationships with. And if you're coming to them with projects you're not that excited about, it kind of dulls that relationship down a little bit.
Yeah, I think I think that's really important, because at the end of the day, when you're I think regardless of the role you play, people recognize quality and consistency across the board. It's why when I think of certain filmmakers or certain actors, for example, like weird example, but Florence Pugh is a good example. Carl Urban for me, J.K. Simmons, and Kate Blanchett. These are actors where it doesn't matter what the project is. If I know that they're in it, I will go out of my way to watch that project, to see that film or see that TV show, just because I know that whatever happens, those actors are going to be fantastic. The directors as well, we're talking about like Taika Waititi and James Gunn, for example. Again, whatever they're going to put their name to, I will show up because I know that they're good. That's, I think, the thing that filmmakers need to kind of see this as well, is that people need to think of you as someone that delivers quality consistently, and that you're the kind of person that they want to spend time with, that they want to invest in. So it very much comes down to, are you a decent person? Are you someone that can get on well with people? But yeah, at the same time, again, it's the same with publicists and journalists, in the sense that if you're constantly going to them with crap, then they don't need to.
Oh, it's Tom again.
But that's the thing, like, you want to go to them with if you're going to them with stuff that you know isn't very good, or you're going to them with stuff that you don't especially believe in, then that's a problem at the end of the day, and you only harm yourself by doing that, and you only harm the client, you harm your relationships with people, you do the client no favors, because you're just trying to make a buck, and that's not helpful. Yeah. There's nothing wrong with wanting to make a living, but at the same time, when you're doing this, you need to make sure you're working on stuff you care about. Otherwise, there's no value in it.
I think there's often a tendency to want to kind of hide behind our films, which is why I always feel desperately sorry for actors, because they really are put on the front line when it comes to the press. And a lot of the time, they don't have a huge amount of control or impact on the project. They take on the role and they are the face of the project, but they're not usually the ones making the major decisions. So I always really feel really sorry for them when they're on press circuits and things. But for short filmmakers who probably aren't having their actors be the representative of the film, how do you approach that with filmmakers who often tend to be quite shy and like to be behind the camera? How important is it for them to take that step forward?
Very important, because people need to, with a short film, at the end of the day, you've got a very limited scope there to kind of tell your story, okay? And more often than not with short films, it tends to be a fairly personal story to the filmmaker at the end of the day, be it the writer or be it the director, or writer-director if it's one person doing the job. And so as a result, you need to make sure that you are out front telling your story, telling your truth, explaining what it is, because that's how people are going to connect with you, and they're going to connect with the project. If they believe in what you're doing, that's great. And I think I think that shines through. So the way I work with a filmmaker is, before we start doing anything, if I like the film, I like to sit down with them, get an idea of why they made it, what their message is, and that then allows us to help them find an audience. So, I was working on a project recently, for example, that was to do with sexual assault victim. And off the back of that, we were just coming. It was during a time when the whole Roe v. Wade debate was kicking off in America and stuff with the Supreme Court. So that was something that we were looking at, and we kind of pointed out, like, hey, look, if the worst had happened to this person, she was in that position. When we know in the UK, for example, we're having similar issues right now, not to that extent, but it's not great. This could have really ruined her life. This could have put her in an even worse position, and she's already in a pretty bad position to begin with. So it was about finding the right audience for that. And off the back of working together on that, we got a piece on Sky News, which was fantastic. So by being honest and by finding a way to deliver the message in a way that resonates with people is really, really important. And I think one thing I really try and instill in people is I'd ask them to kind of think beyond their medium. So think beyond literature, think beyond film, think beyond music, and think about culture. Like, think about the figures and the films and the musicians and someone who've permeated our culture and found a way to do so and be a part of that conversation, because that's how you get staying power, and that's how you increase the relevancy of the overall film.
Yeah, it's really interesting when you have these huge global disasters, as I deem Roe v. Wade, and I will not be told otherwise. Which is
fair.
Motto.
No, I think it's fair.
But I think it's really interesting seeing how you really do have to roll with the punches with things like that. And again, it was kind of a perfect timing for that project. But how much of press and PR really is thinking on your feet and reacting to things in the moment? Because in my world, everything would be planned to the letter 6 months in advance. This does not sound fun to me.
I think it really varies, and I think the big deciding factor ultimately is how quick a client kind of comes to you. Like if a client, for example, in my scenario, they come to me and say, "Hey, dude, we've just been picked up for a couple of festivals, starting." Say they came to me in May and said, "Our festival run starts in July. Can we hire you?" I would come back to them and say, "Great, okay, cool. Let's start doing something in June." That gives me a month to kind of try and book some stuff ahead of time. I can talk to the people at the festival, see who's attending. And if for whatever reason they don't have a press list or they're not able to give it, that can sometimes be a factor, unfortunately, GDPR and so on. We can start looking at regional press. We can look at different newspapers and radio stations and television stations in the general area. They're going to be there as part of this festival. It's a great chance to kind of get you in the door and talk to a few people. It's also a great chance as well to be talking to different bloggers and radio station people who I know already who support short film, could do interviews and stuff as well around, which is very, very helpful. So having that extra time is great. Things get stressful, I think, when they come to you with a week's notice and they don't have a pitch and they don't have anything together and they're praying to God that you can kind of help. And I do appreciate that more often than not, that's down to budgetary reasons. It's down to, I do appreciate, again, like you said, from a producer's perspective, there is a lot of thinking on your feet. Whereas what we're doing, it's more a case of we have to find a way to turn things around as quickly as possible. So that if there is a time crunch on there, because that will always happen, it's even with the best producers, with the best foresight, anything can happen. People can get sick. You can get an announcement very last minute. Something could come through that you weren't expecting. Anything can happen. So for me, it's less a case. It's more a case of just being able to hone in on what needs to be done, what the message is as quick as possible, and find a way to turn that around in a way that we can get the best result for the client.
Yeah, it's always just a bit of a funny world. I think sometimes in film, you never quite know what's going to happen, even when you've planned it meticulously, as I do.
You make a choice when you I think when you work in the arts, you make a choice from the very beginning that you are going to be. You're not working 9 to 5 job anymore. You're working with people like you in the sense that they're a little bit quirky, that they are probably maybe not super well organized.
Back to that.
You're working with people who maybe they don't have a business background, which is fine. Maybe they're coming from acting or whatever it might be. You're always going to find people who are new at whatever it is you do, and they're learning on the job, which is fine. That's totally. We're all still learning as we go, and I think you just have to allow for that. I think the second you decide to work in the arts, you kind of accept that this is going to be slightly chaotic, but ultimately you do it because it's quite rewarding, and I think that's why we do it.
Yeah, it's one of the main reasons I wanted to switch over to film from theatre was because with film you have something that lasts. Yeah. And again, what can often happen is you make a film and it's not quite the right time in the market or audience interests. And then there'll be some huge, whatever it is, piece of news, campaign, whatever, and it's kind of the perfect opportunity to have this film that still lives and breathes and exists somewhere on someone's laptop, and it gets this kind of resurgence. Like we're seeing it on the big scale with Morbius and how it became kind of meme culture, and they have another rerun of it.
It's interesting though, because I think the situation with Morbius, I think, was kind of a perfect storm in the sense that they'd cast Jared Leto in this role, and I think Jared Leto still kind of has. I mean, I don't think it helped when he was like, for the sake of this role, despite the fact that I use crutches and for about 10 minutes in the entire movie, I'm going to have people help me get to and from the bathroom. It's like unnecessary, completely unnecessary. I think because of his reputation, I think some people were kind of a bit kind of going in, which is fair enough. But I also think as well the fact that it's a film about people getting powers from bats coming off the back of COVID really didn't do them any favors either. I feel like it was just kind of a perfect storm of kind of calamity kind of going into it, quite frankly. I think that's kind of how I'd sort of see the Morbius thing. But you are right as well in the sense that it got such a reaction that Sony were just like, okay, let's put it back in the cinema, which I thought was an interesting reaction, I suppose. But if it's made the money, then fair enough, I guess. I think at the end of the day, what it really kind of boils down to there for people is they just want to see good films. I don't think they really care who. Within reason, I think it's more a case of, is this a good movie? Is this a good TV show? People are spoiled right now. I say it all the time, but as every day passes, we get more and more content being created every day, more stuff being announced every day. I mean, Jesus Christ, you've just got to look to see how much stuff that Marvel announced at San Diego Comic-Con. over the weekend, and you look at them, you kind of go, you've just kept the entertainment industry employed for the next 3 years. Thanks, guys. 10 out of 10, appreciate. But yeah, and that's the thing. But the thing is, like, if you've got the fan base there as well, like Star Trek, Star Wars, whatever it might be, Lord of the Rings, the fan base will always show up. And I think for a young filmmaker, I think the trick is trying to find a way to tap into a fan base, trying to kind of build their reputation. And again, I think what it comes down to is, are you being consistent? Are you putting out good work? Are you treating people well? Are you someone that people want to talk about, want to support? And I think that's a big part of it. One of my clients, Tom Payton, he got this really, really well. And I think one of the things he's always done very, very well is that he's always been looking at new ways to promote his material. Like during lockdown, for example, we did a film together called The Ascent, which had premiered and sold out at Fright Fest in 2019. Obviously, because of the pandemic, we couldn't do an awful lot. So Tom came up with the idea that we try and do it in virtual reality. So I'd reached out to IndieWire because one of the guys over at IndieWire, can't remember his name, it's bothering me, one of the editors, he was a big fan of VR. So I set up a Q&A for them inside it. And we ended up nearly crashing the Microsoft servers because of all the traffic we were getting off the back of it. And Microsoft had to step in and kind of go, thank you. But we need to allocate support because you're going to break things, which was great. We were very happy about that. So we ended up actually making history by having the world's first virtual reality film premiere, which was wild. And again, that's off the back of Tom kind of, the filmmaker in this case, kind of looking at other options that are available and finding ways to kind of make their film a little bit different from the rest. What are you doing outside the norm, as it were? What tools that exist right now can you use to kind of get to audiences in a new way? Another example, something that he did as well, which I thought was a great idea, was you can get these kind of like HMV, for example, now sell these like collection boxes where it's like you'll get like a goodie box and you pay like £30 for it, and there might be a Blu-ray inside or a T-shirt or this, and it's always kind of like a mixed bag, and it's intentionally for nerds, which is quite cool. He was like, he was looking into that, and he was like, well, in that case, why don't we give the company a copy of my movie? There's a different film he did a couple of years ago, and have them mass produce that. So that way, as a result, he was going to get paid, I think, as a result, maybe. But at the very least, his film was being put in front of new people that otherwise would never have heard of it before. So it's stuff like that where if you're kind of thinking on your feet a little bit outside the box, it can be quite good. I also think as well, the thing to kind of keep in mind is that never be afraid to try weird ideas. Don't be afraid to try new things. I think when we're working on something that's very precious to us, we get kind of stiff. We get kind of we get a little bit caught up in our own thoughts and our own minds. And I think the thing is to kind of just relax and kind of go, look, if you've made a good film, this will resonate with people. Now we just need to find a way to get it out to people in an interesting way that's going to challenge people, that's going to inspire people, that's going to get them talking about what you're doing. That's the tricky part, but it is doable.
Mm. I have so many ideas now. This is really unhelpful.
It's okay. You've recorded the video. You can go back and rewatch and think of that.
I'll come back to it. It'll be fine. All right. Last question. For people who are completely new to press PR, working with someone for a PR campaign for their film, what are the basics that they need to know?
Sure. So the first thing I would say to all short filmmakers is this. Only really look to engage the PR person if you are getting into, I would say, a sizable film festival. And I know that sounds quite cheeky, and it's not, and this is not to kind of devalue any film festival, as it were, but I would tell them that realistically speaking, if you're getting into a film festival, if you got into if you're doing a festival and you go into a few festivals, that is a really good time to reach out to a publicist. Okay, so once you're in, reach out to us, try and give us as much notice as humanly possible. Even if you can't announce it yet, that's perfectly fine. If you say, for example, you've had a festival come back in May again, and they say, we're going to be announcing you in July for our August festival, you can tell us and we can liaise with the festival. But telling us doesn't breach anything. So they come back and say, you can't make this public. There is a difference between working with the PR team, because everything's confidential up until we release it, or telling the world about. They're two very different things. So come to us when you have that festival, have the discussion with us, send us the film. If we like it and it's something we feel we can do a good job with and we want to work with you because we feel there's a good connection there, we like the work you're doing, that's when we can start looking to book interviews for you around that film festival and then kind of move on from there. So realistically, you should be looking to hire a publicist or have the conversation with publicists once you've started your festival journey and once you've kind of got us on board already. Then if you're going up for a big award, like if you've been longlisted as something for, say, a BAFTA or a BIFA or an IFTA or something like that, if you're in the race and you've sort of been longlisted or whatever, you're doing this and either, again, look to re-engage with us there. Get comfortable with the PR person you're working with. The better the relationship you've got with those people, the more invested they're going to be in you as a filmmaker and you as a person. That can be really, really helpful as well. So it's good to kind of build that relationship. And I think kind of doing it the festival route is a great way to kind of get a feel for, is this a good working relationship? Is this someone I want to work with? And then we obviously can provide you with a list of things we would need. The basic things we would need: still photography, plenty of still shots that are really, really helpful, a good poster as well. And I would kind of tell filmmakers, like, when it comes to the poster and stuff, you can normally tell the difference between like a short film poster and a feature film poster. I would tell people to really properly invest in their graphics. Please invest in good graphics. Please invest in a good poster. Find someone, invest the money. It will make your project stand out so well. If I see a poster and it speaks to me in a certain way in terms of the color scheme that's being used, in terms of design, whatever it might be, I'm curious at the very least. And that's the poster is your business card. It's our first introduction to you. Before we see the poster, before we see the trailer, before we see the movie, we see the poster. So please invest in good graphics. The other thing as well is a good biography, a director's statements. Give us a clear outline of why you made this movie. 2 or 3 paragraphs for a biography, a paragraph or 2 for the statement is always very helpful too. If you're not the writer, get the writer to do a statement as well, producers to do a statement as well. If we have all those things together, we can put a pretty good press release together off the back of that, and then we can start servicing it, and that's going to be really, really helpful in terms of putting the pitch together and getting it out to the right people. Any successes you've had previously, any film festivals you've been in before, if you've made a film that did very well before, like a short or a feature, whatever it might be, if it's premiered at a big festival before, like Statica or Glasgow, Edinburgh, Cannes, whatever it might be, always use that. If you've been working in television, tell us about that. I just had someone come to me today who's been working on sex education, and they're doing a big thing. They were looking for some help with their project. So again, tell us this information, because that can really help us when molding a pitch. If I know someone's worked on a big television show, or if I know that someone's kind of, the topic of the film is kind of poignant based on something that's kind of going on in the world at that point in time, I can tap into that. So I had a client come to me about a film he'd made that was to do with Brexit, sort of. It was kind of to do with looking at why a city voted a certain way after 100 years of voting a different way, and Brexit played a part in that, from what I understand. And again, off the back of that, we could be talking to journalists who have been covering Brexit and this. It's a good way of getting a short film in front of national publications, even if they're not necessarily going to cover it initially. It's a good way of doing that, and it's how people have been covered in the likes of the New York Times, Forbes and stuff in the past as well. So that can be very, very helpful. There's never a guarantee on these things, but at the very least, you can make people aware of your work and see if they can give some kind of love or some pass around a little bit for you.
And hopefully, if they've been on the festival circuit for a month or 2 at least, or they've been in submissions for a little while, they should have the EPK with all of the information. They should have the poster already. So hopefully it's quite a smooth transition a lot of the time in terms of getting you the materials quickly so you can get on with things. I need to say the poster for Wool, because we did not invest in a graphic designer. I made it in 20 minutes on Canva.
No shade. I'm not casting shade here, Charlotte. It's fine.
Exceptional. But again, this is to my relatively untrained eye, so I'm curious as to whether you're like, oh yeah, I can tell you did this.
Do you know what it is? I can tell by the typeface that's used at the bottom when you're kind of directed by, written by, produced by. That's usually when I can kind of tell if a post has been kind of done by a first timer, as it were. And that, again, that's not shade as such. That's just one of those things you sort of notice, as it were. And so as a result, yeah, when I'm doing posters for my projects in the future, I want stuff to look a certain way, because if people know you've put that level of effort in just upon that, then they're going to go, okay, cool, I can't wait to see the film. Perception is everything. You only get one shot at an introduction, at a first opinion, as it were. And it's important to make sure that every step of the way you nail it as best you can.
You mean you don't just pick the prettiest typeface for the posts?
No.
We were in a rush with the festival deadline, and I was like, who are we going to get involved to do the poster? And again, it's last minute, and graphics, they're booked up, they're busy, it takes them time. And I was like, why don't I just put something together just so we have it?
Yeah.
the
Oh,
submission.
here's the thing. I should say, I've done that on past projects when we had no budget. So everyone has done it. It happens across the board. But here's the thing: if you're looking to invest in a PR campaign, if you're looking to invest in a big marketing push or a big festival campaign, if you're looking to hire a company like Festival Focus, for example, to handle your delivery and stuff on the film festival circuit, the better it's at that point you kind of go, okay, well, in that case, we should realistically be looking at kind of like really paying very close attention to our graphics and stuff. And the other thing, the other aspect of it as well is just in terms of branding in general. Like, if you're putting out a poster that kind of gives a really warm, friendly vibe, and it turns out the film is about suicide as a really grim example. The duality, the mixed messaging there really isn't going to be very helpful to the overall film. In an equal measure, if you've made kind of quite a grisly sort of looking poster that feels very post-apocalyptic, for example, but it's actually a love story, you kind of go, I don't think you quite understood the assignment as well as you thought you may have. It's just stuff like that, you know. It's basic branding, and again, I think that the more it's another aspect. It's another thing that I think if filmmakers can kind of take the time to just kind of like just examine their favorite posters, understand why it kind of spoke to them in that way, what it was about this that really stood out to them, and how they can kind of learn those lessons for their work and stuff. I just think that's really, really invaluable. And again, I think first impressions matter for a lot.
Especially when you're at that level of the people that you are potentially going to in terms of press, and they see hundreds of these things on a weekly basis. Like, they notice the details.
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing. And I think it's at this point when you're kind of going, okay, I've made my first couple of short films, I've made my mistakes and stuff like that, which is perfectly okay. Everyone does it. That's how you learn. That's how you do the business. But if you're looking to kind of go up a level and you're looking to kind of go take it to the next level, as it were, with your short, and you've put the time in, you've put the money in and stuff as well, you think you've got something special, invest in a good graphic, really sit and work with someone, work with a professional photographer, work with a designer. There is nothing wrong with getting your hands dirty and doing a mock-up yourself. There's nothing wrong with kind of playing with Pro Tools. There's nothing wrong with playing with Photoshop. That's all fine. You're allowed to do that. And it may be useful when you go into a graphic designer. It's good because by playing and by doing what you obviously did as well, it means that when you do go to a designer, you have an idea of what it is you're doing, and you have an idea of what you're looking for as kind of an end product, as it were, and that can be very, very helpful as well.
Yeah, especially if you're clear what you're asking for when you are, going to all of these little details, poster design, etc., and especially with press as well. Roughly that area. I imagine that helps a great deal in terms of, just and I think it's communication that can happen as well with things like this when you're newer to working with different people.
Yeah, of course. And the other thing is, it's another example as well is when you look at someone like, say, Nicholas Refn or Zack Snyder or Baz Luhrmann, for example. Like, one of the things those three directors all have in common is that when I look at their posters for their projects, I go, okay, this gives me a sense of their artistic style, of their vision, and I have an idea that what I'm seeing here is what I'm going to see on screen. And that's really, really important too. Whether you're a fan of those three gents is a wholly different matter, but I know that when I see their posters, that's going to give me a clear indication of their sense of style, and it's a very good representation of their movie. That again is something else to kind of keep in mind at the end of the day. Is the story you're telling in this picture, in this poster, is this relative to the story you're trying to tell on screen? And if not, then reassess.
There's so many ideas. This is really unhelpful.
I hate talking to you because I come on. I say this to all my clients. I whenever I talk to my clients, I apologize. They say, why? It's because I always send you away with homework. I'm not the worst, but I feel like sometimes I've just misspelled personal tutor. Just going to put down to publicist instead. Public relations, personal tutor. Yeah, one word difference. It's fine.
It all ends up the same, sort of.
We all have to learn, and the thing is, I think that the more, whenever I do talks and stuff on this topic, I encourage people to ask me silly questions, because I think it's good for their confidence to be able to ask those questions and know that they're actually going to be listened to. But at the same time, it's only by asking questions that we think are silly that we sort of realize, one, that there's probably a lot of people in this room right now, on this call right now, on this Zoom talk right now, are probably thinking the same thing, that's scared to speak up. And I think just kind of hearing those questions and realizing that when you speak to a professional, you're not going to get laughed at, you're not going to get mocked, you're not going to get called names, you're not going to be treated like an idiot. I think being treated like an adult treated like a professional and having your queries addressed in a compassionate and clear way is good. So whenever I do stuff like this, whenever I do talks and stuff, I always encourage people to ask whatever the hell they want, because I think it's just going to be more and more, it's going to have a lot of value for them. And I think that's really, really important.
Yeah, I think there's this kind of preconception that everything as a filmmaker has to be your zone of genius. Like creating the film, every part of that has to be your zone of genius. And then the festivals and the publicity and the social media marketing, there is this idea that you have to know everything and be exceptional at all of it. And so to this point, just going, oh yeah, I can do that, I can do that, I can do that.
Yeah, exactly. Second ago, I can figure it out. I have access to the University of YouTube, and therefore, as proxy, I can do this. I've got this. And I agree with you, and I do think as well. I think when you kind of come up the DIY way as well, then furthermore, you still think you have to do everything yourself. And I think all that really does is just. I mean, I get it. I totally understand. We've all been there. But I do think as well that if, depending on your background and stuff, that can add a massive amount of pressure. So that if you are not especially inclined to ask for help or to ask for second opinions, whatever it might be, then that puts an unrealistic expectation on you. You're putting yourself at a disadvantage, whereas the people who are more willing to ask for help or willing to ask for second opinions might get a step further, because they recognize, they know their strengths, they know their weaknesses, and they also recognize, like, is this an area I want to get better in? Is this something like do I want to get better as a grip, or do I want to get better as a writer? You kind of go, well, those two are two very, very different jobs. It's at that point you kind of pick your speciality and you kind of move forward from that. Working and doing interviews and stuff like that, for example, that's a conversation you have with a publicist. Film festival stuff, that's when you're talking to programmers, when you're talking to people at Festival Focus, whoever it might be, you're hiring to look after your festival run. That's, again, really, really important, because, again, if you ask the questions and you work with good people who want to see you succeed, they'll answer your questions for you. They'll give you the time of day. And that's a confidence builder. That's a reminder that you don't have to know everything. You can ask weird questions. And if people are good and they're considerate, they will stop and answer the question for you. And they'll provide as much information as they can so you can make the best decision possible.
Yeah,
so when you go to the next project,
if you have that to hand, it actually frees you up to focus more on what you are best at and what you want to be best at. Again, there's a little bit of fear surrounding all of that, and it's great if you can do these things. Like if you have a festival submission deadline to make and you do have Canva Pro and you happen to be very good at using it, like it's great if you can do it. Same with everything else to go with your film. But there is so much stuff that we don't know, and if we just let go of the pressure a little bit to have to do all of it, life is better.
I think the last thing I kind of tell people as well, and I say this more to kind of calm and encourage, as it were, which is that when I started kind of doing talks for when I started speaking on the topic of PR for like BAFTA and the BFI and stuff like that, I was terrified calling these people. I'd already had 10 years of experience in PR, but there's nothing scarier than being a lad from the East Midlands, from literally the back end of nowhere, and suddenly you're kind of talking to these big scary people who make all the big decisions and stuff. And what I found when I spoke to all of them was they were just nerds. They were just really friendly, really encouraging people who just loved film, loved television, and they just wanted to see people make good products and have a good time. That was it. They wanted to see people treated fairly. They wanted to see good films, and that was it. They wanted to meet good people and see good work, and that was it. And I think that's the thing I say to kind of encourage people is you're speaking to an audience of people who very likely do watch the same, if not similar, films to you, who are into the same sort of stuff that you are. You're going to find a lot of support that way, just by being very genuine and being very honest about the kind of filmmaker you are and the kind of stuff you love. That is going to help you really connect with people who are going to help you further your career, who are going to become friends, mentors, guides, colleagues, and so on and so forth. And that, I think, is the really important thing. I think the more genuine you are with people, the better the better the outcome, in my opinion.
Yeah, this is the thing with imposter syndrome. Everyone always wants to know when it goes away. Everyone's like, when do I get to a point where it's gone? And I have to say, like, it doesn't, because there's always going to be something you haven't done.
Yeah,
you haven't spoken to.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing is, it's about kind of, the way someone put it to me was that you have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable, in a way, in the sense you have to kind of accept that, like you said, you never get
that concept. Every woman who owns a pair of high heels is familiar with that concept.
And unfortunately, as men don't have to deal with that, it's something that we'll never fully understand. So I sympathize. But no, I think in relation to this, yeah, be comfortable with the fact that you're going to meet people for the first time. Like if you were at a big film festival and you saw one of your favorite filmmakers, one of your favorite actors across the room, how are you going to react to that person? Are you going to fangirl or fanboy out? Or are you going to walk over and calmly, politely introduce yourself and have a genuine conversation with this person? You know, like how is that going to affect you? That's good. And I would kind of think of it that way too. Like, I mean, if you walk into a mixer, for example, and you're meeting a producer who's worked on a big TV show or a movie, whatever it is, and you've got a cool idea, be comfortable with the fact that you're kind of doing the whole introduction thing all over again. Appreciate the fact that this person may only be able to give you a minute of their time because they're rushing off to another thing or to whatever it might be. Be comfortable enough in your own skin that you know that even if it's a rejection, that it's not necessarily a rejection of you. It may just be wrong time, wrong place, wrong person. That's okay too. And I think that's another thing too. When we look at failure and stuff, it's not knowing things. It's seldom a rejection of the individual, and it's more a series of factors that kind of fall into place. And it's the same when people kind of get greenlit on things as well. It's a series of factors all falling into place at the right time. So I think the more you do, the harder you work, the more patient you are, the more outgoing you are, the more likely you are to succeed. And I think when it comes to PR and stuff, and when it comes to working with someone like myself, as long as you have everything in place, and again, I am there to ask questions. People like me that are there to not to ask questions, but to be asked questions of. If you want to talk to us, that's fine. And again, I would kind of encourage people as well that if they've got questions, if there's things they're unsure of, ask. You know, it's better to ask. I would rather a client ask me a question and know so we can move forward in a campaign than to assume and to get to the end of the campaign and worry that they've annoyed someone or got something wrong. It's better just to have the conversation ahead of time and move on from there.
Yeah. You are one of my favorite people to talk to in film related things.
Oh, thank you.
Because you know everything, because you insist on doing a lot of different things. And you manage to open a lot of different doors at the same time, and you always do it from a place of kind of integrity in relationships. It's never about sacrificing any of the relationships you've built up. It's always person first in the way that you work. And everyone talks about, like, feel the fear and do it anyway. And I think it's a little bit wrong to do it that way. I think it's, as you say, it's more about be uncomfortable and do it anyway. And you are one of the best at being uncomfortable and doing it anyway.
Thank you. It's very kind of you. I really agree. That's very, very sweet of you. Thank you very much, Charlotte. I appreciate it.
Oh, I'm embarrassed, haven't I?
No, that's the dog making those noises, not me. But no, I think the thing to kind of keep in mind is this. I think the other thing as well is that everyone's nervous the first time they do something. You know, everyone's nervous the first time they step foot on a stage or they're handed the camera, whatever it might be. I think one of the most reassuring things I heard was apparently Francis Ford Coppola said to his daughter, because he showed up on set of a film. So she showed up on set of a film that he was shooting at the time, and apparently he just kept saying, "I have no idea what I'm doing." And she said she found that really reassuring because she was like, this is my dad. I think at that point he may have actually made Godfather. And they were having this conversation. She realized, okay, if he doesn't always know what he's doing, I'll be fine. And I sometimes think that's the important thing too. Like if we're watching the higher ups kind of succeed all the time, like these huge directors and writing actors and stuff, and then we see them, they kind of talk about their own insecurities and stuff. Take power in that, because what they're saying is, I felt the fear, but found a way to kind of make peace with those things so I can kind of go and do the next thing, as it were, as well. So, yeah.
Yeah, I've got to say, as a producer, if someone says that on my set, the main feeling won't be reassured. But yeah, it's a really good point, especially when you have all of these idols. The only people I get starstruck over are producers. Everyone else, fine. Producers, I will absolutely behave like a 3-year-old. Because when you know the inside of their job really, really well, and you spend your day trying to do what they do at a smaller level and not as successfully, of course you're going to be starstruck with that. But as you say, it's always about that personal relationship, and they were always at that point where you are right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, and again, I think there is power to be drawn from that as well, because I mean, you can look at plenty of stories of people who went through hell and and didn't know they were going to be able to make ends meet each month, and now they're doing very, very well for themselves. I think if we focus less on how successful an individual is and look kind of more at how they kind of got where they got, what did they learn, what mistakes did they make along the way, and kind of take sort of comfort from that, I guess That's awesome. Every major filmmaker at some point in time has had a flop. Every major filmmaker at some point has made a film that they hated. Every actor has done a role at some point in time that they really, really would love to take back if they could. That is normal. Everyone's walked into a room at some point in time to introduce himself and then fallen over their own feet.
Yeah.
That is normal. That's all. That will always happen. I imagine that anyone that's ever been up for an Oscar or a BAFTA has done the short walk from their seat to the stage, and all that's going through their head is, "Oh fuck! Please don't let me trip over right now. Please don't let me go right now. I'm begging you." Yeah. You could just see it in their face of just like, "Don't trip, don't trip, don't trip, don't trip, don't." Made it. I did it. I'm good. I'm okay.
And then they have to panic. They were so busy focusing on not tripping over, they've forgotten what they were meant to say.
There's a fucking audience of millions of people watching me right now. Oh shit.
Yeah.
But yeah, and again, I think, yeah. So yeah, I think pay attention to what they've got wrong, because I think you'll find it very reassuring in terms of maybe where you are in your journey.
I have too many ideas. This is unhelpful. Anyway, I will let you go. I will link all of your various information in the description for everyone that wants to reach out and get in touch with you. You're honestly one of the friendliest people in the industry, so I highly recommend sending Tom an email, or
Thank you.
Instagram, whatever platform you prefer.
You're too kind, and I respect the amount you do. I love that you're always trying to find new ways of kind of furthering in filmmakers and getting short films and work within short films and stuff. I love it and I respect that. So I think what you're doing is amazing. Thank you for having me today as well. It's my pleasure.
Oh, thank you. Most people don't love that I have that many ideas, but my assistant does not love that I have that many ideas.
Yeah.
But, things are roundabouts. So
yeah,
it's how it goes. But yeah, I will link everything for you. I really do recommend people get in touch with you, because as I say, you're one of the friendliest people, and you do about everything in the industry. So there's nothing you can't talk about, which is great.
Fine. I'm literally paid to talk.
Yeah, I mean, what a dream job, right?
I know, right? Yeah. I was told in school that I wouldn't amount to anything because I wouldn't shut up, and I was just like, no, it's just I need to find a job that lets me do this and get paid for it. And then I found what it was, and now I win.
Yeah, and we worked so hard at our A levels, and they're not overly useful.
No. I think I got my A levels in acting. Yeah, there's a musical theatre course for my A level.
Well, I can talk to you in German all day. I can't say it's been the most useful.
I can sing, but I can't dance, so take that for what it's worth, I guess. But still.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you have to incorporate singing into your interviews in the future.
Yeah, it's fine. It's fine. To be fair, there was one point in time when I was I'd gone to the bathroom at an event, and I was in the cubicle, and I could hear a guy walk in, and he just started singing to himself. And my only regret in that moment, and then someone else walked in after him, and he got quite shy and stopped singing. And every part of my being in that moment wished to God I knew what song he was singing, just so I could sing back up, because I kind of loved the idea that as a result, we just ended up having this fantastic choral section in the bathroom together, scaring the living piss out of anyone that came and said, no, join in. Okay. It would have been hilarious. And to this day, I'm genuinely sad I have no idea what song it was.
Well, you can start a trend at the next event. Who says you can't be the guy that walks in and starts singing?
I did say to a friend, because I'm hoping to do an event later this year with a friend for a Bowie thing, and I was like, if we get that, I just want to stand there just kind of singing Bowie together. And she was like, yeah, that sounds fine. Let's just do that. So yeah.
I mean, marketing wise, I think it checks out.
Me too. Absolutely, I agree. But yes, thank you so much for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. It is a pleasure. I'm just so excited to have you on this, but I will let you go because you're a very busy man. And as I say, anyone can reach out to you about practically anything, which is always a positive outcome.
Thank you so much. Take care.